Lecture 4, Greek Civilization. The second civilization that made a substantial contribution to Western civilization were the Greeks. We will study Greek civilization by directing our attention to two of its principal and competing city-states, Athens and Sparta. Tension between these two city-states resulted in the Peloponnesian Wars from 431 to 404 BC, which Sparta won. In the 300s BC, the northern Macedonian Alexander the Great united all of Greece under his rule. The Greek city-states. Greek city-states began forming around 900 BC. A major factor that influenced its development is Greek geography. Greek lands are situated on a peninsula called the Balkan Peninsula that juts out in the Ionian Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Cretan Sea, and Thracian Sea. These various seas flow into and over Greek lands, dividing the country up. The geographical divisions determined by water, island, plains, and highlands influenced the Greek people to identify with small cities. Each city and its associated regions commanded loyalty from its people. Common laws, customs, rituals, philosophies, and gods bound the people together whose hub was a city. In time, there were hundreds of Greek city-states, each claiming loyalty from its citizens and with a distinct set of laws, customs, rituals, philosophies, and theologies. Some of the most powerful Greek city-states were Argos, Elis, Achaeus, Sicyon, Corinth, Megara, and a number of others, including, of course, Sparta and Athens. Athens and Sparta emerged as the two most powerful of these Greek city-states. As we will study, they differed significantly from one another. Athens. In 510 BC, Athens distinguished itself from other Greek city-states by instituting a direct form of democratic guidance, and a direct democracy only possible on a small scale. The citizens decide the policies of the state and not elected officials. The wisdom of the Athenian experiment with democracy, limited only to free men, became a model for other states to follow. Athenian reputation for wisdom was reflected in their patron goddess Athena. The goddess Athenians believed protected and guided their city was revealed for her wisdom and reason. According to the Greek philosopher Plato, with reference to Homer, Athena's name is derived from Greek words meaning moral and divine intelligence. Prior to the establishment of Athenian democracy, the Athenians contributed another foundational concept for Western civilization, the idea of a written-down code of law that is universally applied to all. This is often referred to as the rule of law. The writer of Athens' first written code of law was Draco. Prior to Draco, Athens was ruled by a complex system of oral traditions that were not widely known nor uniformly applied. Around 622 BC, Draco proposed a legal code that became incorporated into the first governing constitution of Athens. Writing down laws enabled them to be more widely known, at least to those who could read, and were capable of being applied equally. Another means which Draco established to ensure equal justice before the law for the many was a jury system by which the guilt of the accused was determined by the majority vote of a jury. Even though, during Draco's law, his laws were recognized as a significant advance in the application of justice in a fair manner, later Athenians viewed Draco's law code as excessively severe, hence our term draconian. According to the early Greek historian Plutarch, echoing another Athenian complaint that, quote, Draco's law were written in blood. Draco's laws were severe since the penalty for many infractions was death. Building upon and moderating Draco's code of law and Athenian constitution, the Athenian ruler Solon, and he lived from 638 to 558 BC, prepared the way for Athens' experiment with democracy. During the 4th century BC, Greeks began to view Solon as the father of Athenian democracy. However, as demonstrated by a scholar, Ehrenberg, Solon never intended to institute a democracy. Even so, it can be argued that Solon's political, economic, and constitutional reform created the necessary conditions for a democracy to take root in. And I'm going to read an excerpt from Plutarch's History of Solon, and I quote, "First, then, he repealed all of Draco's laws, except those concerning homicide, because they were too severe, and the punishment too great. For death was appointed for almost all offenses, insomuch that those who are convicted of idleness were to die, and those that stole a cabbage or an apple to suffer, even as villains that committed sacrilege or murder. So that Demades, in after time, was thought to have said very happily that Draco's law were written not with ink but blood, and he himself, being once asked why be made death the punishment of most offenses, replied, Small ones deserve that, and I have no hire for the greater crimes." End of quote. One of Athens' most notable 4th century democratic leaders was Pericles, lived from 495 to 429 BC. Pericles was born a few years before the Greek city-states prevented the Persian Empire from overtaking Greek lands during the Greco-Persian War. Pericles governed Athens as a statesman and as a military leader. The time of Pericles' rule is often called the Athenian Golden Age. During this Golden Age, Pericles promoted Athenian democratic values and aimed at creating an empire with Athens as its center. The Athenian Golden Age is comparable to the Renaissance in that under Pericles' rule, architects, sculptors, playwrights, and intellectuals received substantial funding. Since Athens was not a dictatorship but a democracy, although limited to free men, Pericles needed to provide motivation other than fear for its citizens to actively support their democratic life. This was especially important when it came to Athenian military service. Pericles successfully provided this motivation by instilling into Athenians a sense of civic duty defined by civic virtue that concerns the common good and not only the individual good. Near the end of Pericles' life, his ambitions for Athens to dominate Peloponnese, the peninsula of southern Greece, caused tension with other city-states, principally with Sparta. The friction resulted in the Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and the Spartan Peloponnesian League ended with Sparta as the victor. During the war, the population of Athens was decimated by a terrible plague. Desiring a scapegoat, Athens citizens turned against Pericles and removed him from office. A few years after the Peloponnesian War ended with Athens as the loser in 404 BC, another scapegoat was chosen by the Athenians, this time a philosopher, the great Athenian philosopher Socrates. Socrates was placed on trial, found guilty of corrupting the youth, and ordered by Athens to commit suicide. In 399 BC, he complied with his state's orders, drank the hemlock given to him, and died. His death and his philosophical ideas have left a deep impression on Western civilization. One contribution that he is well known for is the Socratic Method. And I provide in your transcript an excerpt of the Socratic Method from his Meno. Sparta. Xenophon was a pupil of Socrates and fellow Athenian, who also was punished by the Athenians by being exiled from his city-state. He sought refuge in Sparta. There he recorded Spartan life, which, unlike the Athens, did not value democracy. Instead, Sparta was governed in a militaristic manner with a strict hierarchy. After defeating the Athenians in the Peloponnesian War, Sparta remained a dominant power in Greece. They maintained their influence even under Alexander the Great's Greek Empire. Spartan power came to an end when the Roman Empire sacked the city-state of Corinth in 146 and then subdued the other Greek city-states, and that's 146 BC. The sack of Corinth occurred during the Achaean War between the Greek-Achaean League and the Roman Empire. Alexander the Great and the Greek Empire. In the 4th century BC, the northern Macedonian king Philip II successfully dominated the Greek city-states and planned to replace the Persian Empire. Fulfilling his father's dreams, Alexander the Great, tutored by Aristotle, successfully created a vast Greek empire that defeated and replaced the Persian Empire. Because of Alexander's conquests, Greek art, literature, and philosophy made a lasting and significant impression on Western civilization. Alexander's zeal to extend Greek culture caused him to invade India. Shortly after his attempted conquest of India, he died. He was only 32 years old. As explained in the previous lecture, after his death, his empire was divided up between 4 very powerful men, often referred to as generals. God bless.